Today we are going to go from paper to collage. Welcome back, friends. So I know a lot of you really like that kind of a video where you make papers and then you make a collage. So I thought, let's do that today. Usually my gel printing sessions are so long that I'm totally spent. I have no energy left to do a collage in that moment. And a lot of times I'm working on papers for a much bigger collage. And I just finished one and I'm going to put it up here for you to see. I love it. It came out with many of the papers that I've been doing in the last couple of weeks. Colorful and a lot of fun. It's a large painting, a 24 by 36. But, you know, I don't only work in these large sizes. Sometimes I like to do these small collages that I can finish in an hour or two. So in this particular session, total, making papers and the little collage, an 8 by 8 canvas panel or stretched canvas, a total of an hour and a half. Okay, so let's get started because we have a lot to cover. Okay, so I have some stencils here, a couple of masks, and this is what I'm going to be using to make the papers. I also have some texture. This is a needlepoint screen, plastic, really makes nice grids. And here is my my cardboard that I created. I did that in another video, so I'll put the link up in the corner. Anyway, I'm going to use medical exam paper, which is very wide. I think it's 15 inches wide. So I'm going to patchwork these. I'm going to kind of print edge to edge. Anyway, that's the plan. I want some neutral papers. So I was thinking of making neutral papers, and then I decided let's try to actually print onto a piece of canvas. So that didn't work out so well. So I'm going to skip that part, and we're just going to make some neutral papers. So as I'm doing this, I want to mention you can skip ahead. I have chapters listed in the description below where you could skip ahead to the collage if that's really all you want to see. So you will see a little bit of me trying to print on the panel, but okay, let's just take a look. So I'm going to use some crumpled paper, and this is Indian yellow and a little bit of Titan buff. Not enough Titan buff. So this Indian yellow is way too intense, as you can see. So I'm trying to add a little bit more Titan buff to kind of lighten it up. My nozzles lately have all been clogged. I'm just terrible at like closing them immediately. Anyway, so all I'm doing is crumpling up a random piece of paper. In this case, it was newsprint, and I'm lifting. And as you can see, the yellow is still too bright, and I'm trying to print onto a canvas panel that's painted with Titan buff. And this did not work. I mean, it worked a little bit, but as you can see where the wood was, I could not really get my fingers under there to really get around there. So that was not the look I was going for. So I decide I'm just going to pick this up with some Titan buff, and that will be my first paper. And since I'm using medical exam paper, we're going to be doing the patchwork, which means we're going to be really have paint edge to edge, and we're going to be doing, you know, half the paper on one side, the other side will be probably similar, maybe a little bit different. Each paper will be different, but for this first one I'm just going to try to make a neutral paper, and I'm picking up the edges, around the edges, cleaning up with a piece of deli paper. and the yellow is still too intense. So I'm going to put a crumpled layer of just Titan Buff on top of that. But first we're going to work on the other side. So this time I'm going to lay down a background of Titan Buff. And you know, sometimes these cleanup sheets, you know, that you're laying on top, they have some interesting colored bands that happen. You'll see as I go along the fun edges that I get. So this time I'm starting with a lot of Titan Buff and just a tiny little bit of yellow. Now I'm getting more of a buttery yellow. And I'm going to use, I think, the same crumpled paper. Oh no, I went and wasted another one. Eventually I do reuse one, I think. And this works with other papers as well. It doesn't have to be newsprint. So medical exam paper and the deli paper are very thin. So you don't have to leave it too long on the plate. As a matter of fact, if you do, it might actually be detrimental. So don't leave it very long. I don't really care if I leave a little paint on the plate. That'll just end up in the next print. It'll be fine. So and here I'm reusing, and I'm just trying to get a little bit of Titan Buff on top of that one that was too yellow. And that should do it for that paper. Looks pretty good. And even that wrinkle doesn't bother me. So I do have some Titan Buff on the plate, so I'm picking it up with quinacridone red. And we're going to do another piece of paper, but I am laying down a stencil first. I should have made a background. And I'm trying to put a texture through the openings. So not all of the papers in this session make it into the canvas, but right now I'm doing a combination of papers, and then I'm going to be cutting some ribbons or tearing some ribbons, and I'm just going to do a variety because I'm not really sure what I want. So you could see what I mean by this pickup sheet, this cleanup sheet really starts to get like fun edges on it. And yes, I'm leaving stuff on the plate, but I'm following my intuition, and I thought, okay, this one might be really pretty with some Indian yellow on top of it. And that's going to be my background on this one. And that, look at that beautiful strip right there. And so now I can overlay on top of that. And this is Golden's Teal. And because I still have a little bit of Indian yellow on my brayer, I get this nice variation in the color. And I'm going to lay down some masks. So this collage is going to be a combination of neutral paper and then colorful papers. So I really like the way that looks. But now we have a ghost. We always have to do something with the ghost. And I'm working fast because, you know, the paint might dry. And some of it did. But I'm just going to pick that up with Indian yellow. These first layers, you know, they could have something nice added to them from the previous print. And this is going to go on the other side. I love that little strip down the middle of the quinacridone red. So I wasn't too pleased with that paper overall, so now I'm using it as a cleanup sheet. Maybe something interesting will happen from it. So that's looking good so far. It's very wet right now, so I'm putting it to the side. Hopefully it'll be dry by the time I want to use it. So this is quinacridone purple, and I had mixed in a little bit of retarder in there, and it's not fully mixed in, but I used my brayer to mix it. And now we're going to put it over part of this. I love that. And now we have the ghost. So patchworking is a lot of fun. I mean, you could just, you know, keep layering and turning the paper and doing something different. And even the cleanup sheets that have these little strips on them are very usable in collage. And you just go with the flow and see what you get. It really lends itself to these bigger papers that don't fit on maybe your small 8x10. If you only have an 8x10 or a 9x12, you sometimes have this you know, big border around it. You're wasting paper. So instead of wasting paper, patchwork. It's a lot of fun. So this time I started a new cleanup sheet, and this time I'm using just another one of the medical exam papers instead of deli. So that was the yellow green from Nova Color, and because I had some purple on the plate, we've got a little bit of brown going on in there. It's just a grungy paper. Again, I'm going to use the teal. I really do love the grid that you get with this. So I'm going to try putting that over this yellow, the green yellow, yellow green. And this paper's also good on the days that you don't have the patience to wait 2 minutes for each layer to dry. Some days I just don't have time for that. So I figure I'll pick up the ghost with the same color. Much cleaner this time because we don't have the purple making it all brown. Now look at the border on this thing. I mean, really, I love it. So I'm still very unsure. Like, I have one paper that I really like. I wasn't going to make this many papers, but I keep going because I want to make sure that I have what I need to do my collage. And my collage is just, you know, an idea in my head for composition, but it's not it's not too tight a composition. Anyway, I'm using my when accidents like that happen, I go with the flow. So that stencil wanted to be there, and we'll see what happens. Maybe I got something good out of it. But then I put it over this, so that was a mistake. I should have just picked it up with some deli paper. I would have had an interesting deli paper. But I didn't get a good thing there. But anyway, I'm picking it up with the cleanup sheet, and it will definitely add some great stuff here. Yeah, I love that strip right there. And I figured maybe because the paint on this paper was still a little bit damp, that maybe it would pick up this paint that's still on the plate, but it wasn't really working. Sometimes it works. It was worth a try. I got a little bit of it, a little grunge. So then I figured I'll make some green. Some really grungy green. And I'm just going to go over this paper, which is really looking fabulous. My cleanup sheet is looking really fabulous. I mean, look at that. With those edges. I love it. And especially with the pop of teal. So I do need at least one Payne's Gray paper. Now for some reason, this is Liquitex Fluid Payne's Gray. It does not look like Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray is usually bluer than this. And plus I had a little bit of Indian yellow on my brayer still, so it made it more of a olivey Payne's Gray. But I'm picking this up with deli paper because I want a super transparent paper, and I wanted to have at least one of them for this collage. So that'll be useful. You'll see how I use that. And then the bottom part beyond where the crease is, I wanted to put some yellow over that. I meant to put it on the underside, but it was okay on the top. It didn't really matter. So I do have some interesting stuff on the plate left over from the Payne's Gray, so maybe I can get some of that to pick up here. So as you can see, every time I see a little bit of paint left on the plate, I try to pick it up somewhere else. That's the whole process with patchworking. You just keep layering it, seeing if you can improve any of, you know, the layers that were on the paper previously. That paper, I don't know if there's anything I can do to make this one better, but I keep trying. And even if there's just a little part of it that works well, that's all I really need for collage. So I definitely wanted a paper that did have a lot of red. So I'm going one more time to try to create a paper with a lot of red. So this is a fresh piece of medical exam paper. And I'm going for wrinkles on this one, but I don't know if that was a great idea. And this is that purple again. As you can see, it's still not mixing. Of all the stencils I've created, I think this is one of my favorites because they look like little candies to me. I don't know, they're just really cute. And the ghost is pretty nice too. So I'm going to pick that up with red. So the red and the purple, they really look really nice together. They're both transparent colors. This is Nova Color again. I think that's what quinacridone colors are usually transparent. I don't know what quinacridone means, but I think it has something to do with transparency. But so they just really look nice together. I especially like the more subtle right side, even though it has those big white creases in it. I still like it. And that paper on the top, the cleanup sheet, it just keeps improving. And so now I have some nice residual creases on the plate, which will probably look nice on the next print. Again, this is the quinacridone purple. So considering this medical exam paper is so thin, it is durable. It will tear, especially when it's really wet like they are right now with all these layers. But it's pretty durable. Maybe not as durable as like a wet strength tissue, but it's a really fun paper to work with. If you haven't tried it, it's inexpensive. The rolls are really long. They're usually pretty wide. The one that I get is only 15 inches wide. Most medical exam papers are wider than that. This one is smooth. It's got a smooth side and a rough side, but it's not the super crepey kind. I know that there's like two kinds, and I don't like the crepey one. It did not print well for me. And of course, as always, I will put a link in the description below to both the deli paper and the medical exam paper. Now, if you're at all familiar with my channel, you know I use deli paper a lot. And this is why. Look at how beautifully, first of all, it cleaned the plate and it gave me this beautiful grungy paper. Okay, so let's kind of review what I've got so far. Let's make sure that we've got what we need. So this was the first paper that I kind of started, but I'm not loving it. One side I'm loving, the other. The red paper is nice. I think I can use a piece of that. But this one, I like that top part, but the bottom part is just a little too messy for me. This paper I love. There's going to be parts of this I can use for sure. And I'm actually starting to like rethink my whole idea because of this paper, as you will see. I also have these strips that are just along the cleanup sheets. Like look at this cleanup sheet. Oh my goodness. So I don't know whether to cut this up into strips, whether to leave it as a whole, use it in another project. I don't know. I really do like it a lot. Sometimes the papers I like the most are the ones that just have grunge on them and nothing more. It's kind of silly. But, I start thinking maybe I should just forget the neutral papers. Let's just cover the whole panel with that beautiful paper. But I think I'll probably stick with my original plan. And because I went edge to edge, I have enough to wrap around the sides, which is good. And so I think I have enough to get me started here. So another idea I had was to cut out that circle or one of these circles and use it as a focal point along with one of my label transfers that I printed out. And I think, yeah. So this is like something that I drew in Procreate, and I printed it out on Avery label paper. And I am going to transfer it over a circle. At least that's what the idea was, and that was going to create a focal point. And I want the little doodad that I drew in Procreate to be larger than the circle, but I made a couple of different sizes because I wasn't really sure. I was even looking at that gorgeous paper to see if that would work, but yeah, the ideas are still coming together, and I'm changing my mind about a lot of things and moving forward. Before I start gluing down my neutral background, I want to show you this. I took this grid out again, and and my plate, and I just laid down some Payne's Gray and used that grid as like a stamp. So I just picked up the paint off the plate and put it over that print because I wanted that I wanted those little fine lines. So the print looks a little bit different than it did a minute ago. Okay, so I'm just checking, make sure my blade is nice and sharp. I have a metal edge ruler. I've got my gel medium, and I'm ready to start with my collage. Now, the very first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure my brush is wet before I put it into the gel medium. We don't want to ruin the brush. And I'm going to start just from one end. I do a little at a time. I make sure that I'm in the center where I want to be. And I'm going to use my Catalyst Wedge to smooth it all out. And I'm going to go all the way around the edges as well. So sometimes with these really thin papers, especially this particular kind of paper, I notice that after the paint dries, it actually looks like it shrunk or something. So I can't get it to lay totally flat. But this is a neutral paper, so I could cut it down the middle. You see how it's like not really laying properly? So I'm just gonna make it lay down flat. I'm gonna cut it down the middle, because you're not even going to notice any of that. And that way I can get it to lay flat. I don't know why it does that. It's probably because of the kind of paper it is. And it's just like a fraction where it doesn't line up after I've cut it. And since I have Tighten Buff also on the canvas, you don't really see it. And plus, we're going to be collaging on top of this as well. So I always cut my corners because I'm going to, wrap a package. Reinforce the corner. So I do get a lot of glue all over my hands. I don't like wearing gloves. It's terrible. Anyway, I even put glue on the back of the canvas panel because I want this to really like go all the way around. And I am planning to like put these in little black frames so the sides don't even really matter that much. And so now that my canvas is completely covered on all sides, I'm going to leave it to dry. I always like put some gel medium across the top as well. It's really sealed. It's going to take a little while to dry, so while it's drying, we're going to start planning our papers. So I had decided that I'm not going to cut with the X-Acto into strips like ribbons. So first I'm going to just like cut this circle out, and then we'll probably tear. And I'll decide after, I have some things, like I was looking at that and I right away thought, okay, this is it. This is it. That's all I need. But I started tearing. This is where I really started changing my mind. But I changed my mind a couple of times before this is complete. This was not as quick a collage as I sometimes do. So it seemed a little uneven. But, I saved those little papers and you'll see I end up using them in the end. So I'm still deciding, is that the right size circle? Is that the circle I want? So hard to decide. And I can't even lay these papers on top of the other one because it's still wet. And this paper's so thin, it would instantly stick to it and I'll never get it off. So I'm just going to try to visualize this without laying it over the board or the canvas panel. But already I'm not liking it. So I had an extra canvas. I just wanted to see how it fit in relation to the 8-inch canvas. And I'm already like not liking it. Sometimes we just have to try different things until our eye tells us it's correct. But I should have made enough papers that I could make this work. I definitely wanted to use some of this red. And a lot of times I like to just tear randomly in the hopes that maybe I got an interesting shape. And I'm thinking of putting that towards the bottom. It's funny now that I'm looking at it after the fact and I'm watching myself place these papers. When you're right on top of it like that, you don't notice things, but there was a couple of things that was happening there that I think I would have been happy with. But I kept trying to make that circle work, This is why you shouldn't have preconceived ideas. I should never have come up with an idea like that because that was making me make it work. I was trying to make it work with that stupid circle. And it just was not going to work because that circle was terrible. but I kept trying to make it work. I was trying to see if I was dry enough to maybe lay these papers down to see if I liked it. And I didn't want to forget my deli paper. So first I was thinking of using the one with the yellow. But I wanted to see what it would look like also with the darker one. Well, it's not really darker, it's just without the yellow. And it looks very like charcoal gray. It does not look like Payne's gray. So I'm liking some of the patterns that's going on here, but this is still... But then I remember I have this paper. So anyway, as much as I did not want to cut into this, I decide I'm going to cut into it because that paper is a winner so much more than the other papers, especially this end of it. I love that teal. It's a much brighter teal. So as you can see, I've changed my mind a lot. Still trying to make that thing work. So I'm getting closer. I got to cut down the deli paper. I'm going to use a piece of it at the bottom and another piece of it at the top. So I'm much happier with the color combination now, but the circle is still bothering me. I want to see what this looks like on top of the actual neutral background. I love how that deli paper with the Payne's gray almost looks like a pinstripe suit. So I'm to a point where I think I'm going to start gluing something down, making at least some decisions. And I'm wrapping it around. So now the red has to go on top of that. I did not realize how close to the edge I was of the frame of the camera. Sorry about that. And I'm also going to wrap that around. So on the top part, I'm going to also start with the Payne's Gray. Then I'm going to overlay this. And then there's that red piece. And I kind of like it on an angle a little bit. And I'm still thinking of using this circle. Still thinking about it. So I think that this is those teal bits that are really bothering me. So I may have to pick another paper and make a circle. And the circle might need to be bigger. But I'm going to start by putting at least the part that I know. This I know is going to work. And those other two papers as well. So I'll start there, and then I'm figuring if I have to change the circle, I'll change the circle. Or maybe it doesn't even need the circle. Okay, so while you watch me glue paper, let me remind you that the Gel Summit is coming up in October. And I am one of the instructors this year. So if you saw the video last week, I did mention it. If you want to get the $10 off coupon, then coupon code, excuse me, then check out the description below. There will be a link to the wait list that I have started, where I'm going to be contacting you as soon as we drop those codes. So don't miss out. You definitely save some money. But you also, the Gel Summit is going to be fabulous. I'm one of 14 artists that will be doing both gel printing and collage, or at least showing how they use their papers. So I'll be doing a collage, a much more intricate collage than this one. It's a more of an intermediate class rather than a simple collage. I hope you'll join us. I'm very excited about it. I was very honored that Drew invited me to participate this year. Okay, so now we've got to make decisions. But this is looking good so far. But I'm just, that circle is just not making it for me. So I'm thinking something bigger. Maybe I'm just looking at the stencil to see if it's the right size, but even that was too small. And then this seems a little too big. But then of course I need the right color. And I don't know. And that, I'm thinking just putting that down, but then I thought, it needs a circle. So the Avery label paper is just like, it's after you've peeled your labels off. You're left with this paper that's a little waxy, and that black part is toner. So it's from your laser printer. And I'm just trying to visualize if it was just black on top of that. And I'm thinking, no, I definitely have to have the circle. Not a perfect circle, an uneven circle. And I do like the color orange. It's just not this paper. But I keep trying to make it work from this paper. Do you ever do this? Do you stress about something? Anyway, I tried the green. No, it needs to be orange. It needs to be orange. So I decide I'm going to go back to my orange papers. I'm going to go get my orange box that has all my orange papers, and we're going to pick a color. So this is why I sort by color, because this makes that whole process so easy. So I wanted to pick a simple paper, one that like that one's kind of perfect. I don't want it to have like a stencil design on it that is suddenly introducing another pattern. I was looking at darker oranges like this, and I even found one that was more like a, pinker. That one's pinker. And I figured, let me put this aside so I don't overwhelm myself with too many choices, and let's just take a look. And I decide that the one on the far left is too pink. It's not, that's not going to work. The Indian yellow one, that one's also too pink. So it's one of these two. And that one on top seems a little too, like too much is going on. Too much detail. And I'm also going by the weight of the paper. That one is a much thinner rice paper, and I was afraid you were going to see through it. So I decided to go with this one. So I'm just tracing around the circle, or the stencil, mask. Can't find my words today. And just using scissors to cut it out. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is a free-form circle anyway. I didn't want anything too perfect. Too big. Too big. Way too big. So then I decide to go with the inner part of the circle. I even like that little bump. Now, at the time that I made this paper, I probably didn't love it. It was probably a cleanup sheet for all I know. It definitely was a nothing kind of paper, but suddenly when you're doing a collage and you need a splash of orange, and you've got this beautiful grungy paper that has a little bit of a glow to it, yeah, then you suddenly love that paper. And I'm going to put that on top. And when you see this transfer, how easy it is. I did this a couple of weeks ago with a different, like a quicker collage, I think. But I think you will, if you haven't seen that one, I'm going to demonstrate it again. It's something that I'm thinking I'm going to do a lot more of, especially when I am transferring designs that I've done on my iPad. I'm probably going to cut that out as a stencil too, or a mask. I don't know why I never made a mask out of it. I think that was the initial intention, and I just never got around to it. I might make a set that has like a large one and a small one, or two small ones and a large one. I think it might make a nice mask set. So since the gel medium's already wet, I'm just going to lay this right on top, and I'm going to push it into the gel medium. Make sure it's really in there. So the toner transfers into the gel medium, and because this is a waxy paper, it does not stick to the board. And sometimes you get a really grungy result, and sometimes you get a really clean result. So we'll have to see which one we got this time. So then I found these strips that were just laying on the table, if you recall when I was ripping earlier, and I decide, yeah, I need a little bit of that right there. Break up all that red. Nice little touch. I enjoy that a lot. All right, so now we have to wait 20 minutes for this paper to dry on top of the gel medium. and I'll be right back. Well, that was a fast 20 minutes. Okay, so we are ready. I actually waited too long because somebody interrupted me. And so maybe it dried a little too much, but we got this really grungy result. A lot of it stuck to the paper. So it could be that I left it too long because I was talking, and I should have picked it up at the 20-minute mark, maybe even 15. But I'm going to put some gel medium over it to seal it. I'm not that unhappy with it. The whole thing is grungy. We have now some grungy black. Yes, I could have painted that on there with a paintbrush, but this was a fun technique, and I got a grungier effect. I think I like this better. So thank you for joining me today, and don't forget to create, inspire, and share, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.